I will read a bit from my latest book, which is called The Amber Maze. It's the sixth of six what I call literary mysteries. Each one has a colour in the title, and the content of the book is related to the colour in one way or another. But they're all freestanding, so you're all very welcome to buy the latest one without having read any of the others. Perversely, I propose to start at page 40. Everybody else seems to start at the beginning, but I'm afraid I haven't. According to the blurb, and I should know because I wrote it, it says, while staying in a Dorset cottage, Hugh Mullion, the main character, finds a mysterious key down the side of an antique chair. No one can say how long the key has been there or what it opens. Hugh's search for answers will unlock the secrets of the troubled life of a talented artist, destined to be hailed a neglected genius 50 years after his death. And no secret is darker than that of the Amber Maze, from whose malign influence he never escaped. The trail takes Hugh from Edwardian Oxfordshire to 1960s Camden Town, where the ghosts of the past are finally laid to rest. Right. The trail has so far taken Hugh to a country house in Oxfordshire called Ascendine Court. He goes there because he discovers that the character who emerges from the box which the key opens had an association unclear at this place. He's wandering around the house and gardens. The house manager, the one who's called Simon, whose name will appear, is called away, so Hugh is left to his own devices. Unwisely, he decides to go to explore the maze. So here we are. The sun was dipping, but the day... The sun was slipping, but the day was still pleasantly warm as he pushed past the barrier and approached the entrance of the maze. It was flanked by limestone columns topped by balls bearing the masks of tragedy and comedy, an allusion, perhaps, to Clive Paragon's career on the stage, now largely forgotten. As he took his first faltering steps into the maze, he was struck by the height of the hedges, 8 feet at least, soaring above him, and by how thick they were, how solid and confining, how narrow the path between them. He turned the first corner and felt for the plan of the maze he'd brought to Ascendine, the one on which Rosie and Eleanor, his daughters, had marked the route to the centre and how to get out again. Damn, it was in his jacket with the phone. Never mind, how long should he allow to do the maze? 20 minutes? Half an hour? That should be plenty. And hadn't he read somewhere that by following the outside walls of a maze consistently to the left, he would arrive back at the entrance? Or was it the right? Or was that a different sort of maze entirely? He found himself walking faster, but the sense of progress was illusory as he came to a dead end, turned back and wondered which way he had come and which way he should go. He could have done with a ball of thread. He stumbled further into the maze and further from the entrance and the outside world. He was becoming increasingly disoriented, his decisions increasingly arbitrary when faced with choices. Had he been along here before? It all looked the same. The walls seemed even taller, the sharp, straight sides tighter and more impenetrable. And the silence was absolute. The bird song had tailed away. He could hear nothing. And no one, he realised, could hear him. Had Simon found his note? Would someone come looking? It was cold. The light was fading, the walls becoming darker. He found it hard to see as he blundered forward, the panic rising. And the anger, too. The situation was absurd. He could only be yards from the way he'd come in. How long had he been here? He couldn't even read his watch. The silence was broken by an insistent rustling from under a hedge, and then a slithering, but whether coming closer or moving away, he couldn't tell. A sudden scream, a fox, an owl. He started to run, his mouth and throat dry. He grasped that he had left the squares of the outer section of the maze and was following in fits and starts circles that were getting smaller. At length, he fell into an open area. It was lighter here than in the body of the maze. He made out ghostly white against the darkness of the hedge opposite a long stone bench. He dropped to it, and arms folded, breathing heavily, he leaned forward and stared at the pitted paving in front of him. He was exhausted. After a few minutes, he eased himself up and over to the statue on the plinth in the centre, encrusted with lichen, a representation of Pan, horned and hooved, leering malevolently as he gripped his pipe. Beneath, carved in relief on the front of the plinth, the maze in miniature, as if to taunt those who had struggled to reach their goal or to celebrate their success. But Hugh's only thought was how to escape from the maze and get back to the house. Nothing would induce him to return by those dizzying paths through the blackness of the interior, nor could he stay here. And then he remembered that the maze had a separate exit. The dark circle surrounding him appeared unbroken. He couldn't even see how he'd entered it. He followed the hedge round until he spotted a pale sign, framed by yew, that must have been left after public closure of the maze. It was in the shape of a pointing hand, way out. He burst from the exit as if propelled by an unseen force. He came to a halt on an area of grass and steadied himself on the edge of a marble urn. It was smooth and unexpectedly warm to the touch. How long had he been in that place? 1 hour? 2? He tilted the face of his watch to catch the sunset stretched beneath the trees in the distance. Barely 3/4 of an hour. That's it.